So today I'm going to cover everything you've always wanted to know about dashboard layouts, but were afraid to ask. So to start, all I did was I went through here and I used a dashboard template and I used the time series template. So this is a great tip if you want to get mobile layouts started right from the get-go that provides both a tablet and a mobile layout for you. The only thing that I've done here to customize is I put a text label so I know that this is the default layout. I also put a text here for this is the mobile layout, and in the tablet in the top left corner the word tablet, so I know which layout is being used, so we can do a little bit of testing and hacking on these and see what happens. So the next thing we're going to do for a test is we're going to get a lightning page. Now a lot of people don't know these mobile layouts will also be reused in a lightning embedded page, and it will all depend on the constraints, which we'll talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag another dashboard right here, and I'm going to select my time series layout dashboard, and I'm going to drag another dashboard up at the top, and you can see we've used the same one. All right, so now what you can see is each one defaults to a different layout because these are all different widths. So let's go back here. Oops, we'll wait for that to save. And now we'll go back here and load this page. So again, you see that this one uses the default layout, this one uses the tablet layout, and this one uses the mobile layout. Now that's because of my laptop width. So let's try a few other things. What we can do is we can also try and shrink this. Now if I shrink this, what you'll notice is it does not update right away. You do actually have to hit refresh, and now we can see we're still at about the same ratios. So let's go a little smaller and see what that does. So now the lightning page is actually triggered, and the lightning page is using its standard width. But now you can see that we've got the tablet layout here, the tablet layout here, and the tablet layout here because the lightning page has reflown the content. So this is a good way to test. If you really want to validate, a little tip is I'm going to hit Control-Shift-Command-4 on a Mac, and this little tool pops up. This is a great tool for measuring. If you can read these small numbers, you can measure and see how wide each container is in pixels, and then you can evaluate what's going on there and better diagnose which layout will be used. So let's go back here to learn more about this. So let's go to, let's say, the mobile layout and see how that works. So a lot of people don't know this right here in the top left corner is a clickable link, and that gets you to these layout properties. So we're going to focus on this device category, and what you can see is there's no minimum size, but there is a maximum width. So this means that this layout will be used in any scenario where there are 599 pixels or less of width. It would be used for any orientation and any platform. So that's why we see that being used in that smaller container. And then if we go to the tablet, what we'll notice is this is 600 to 999. So this is, most tablets are around that range in logical pixels. But again, as you see, it's also being used for these wider containers on embedded layouts. So let's look through the orientation. So what is orientation? Orientation actually has nothing to do with the orientation of the device. All this does is checks to see if your height is greater than your width. So we're going to go to our mobile layout. We're going to look at this orientation, and we're going to set orientation to portrait. So now once orientation is set to portrait, we can go through here, go back to our lightning page. Now let's try a couple different heights. If we do, let's say 900 and click away, now I'm loading this in a portrait mode so I can see it uses my layout. And if we go down to something or let's go 200, so we know that this is a landscape orientation because the width is greater than the height. You can see that what it actually does is it uses the default layout. Now it may do some reflowing of content for the default layout, but it is going to start with that default. So that portrait is a great way you can key on that width versus height and create different experiences for these types of scenarios. I'm going to set that back to all. The second one is platform. So iOS and Android. So now if this is, let's say you wanted to use a different layout for embedded versus your mobile apps, or you want to have a different layout on iOS versus Android, you can do that. Now, if you just want to have one different from mobile to embedded, then you would have to clone this and say, hey, make one for iOS or one for Android. But what I will tell you is there is a small trick that we can do, and I'll search for platform, iOS, and I can actually just add in comma, Android. Just validated this, that this does in fact work. It will save, and now you can use this on. I'm not quite sure why we didn't go and make this multi-select when we built this. Honestly, I think there was a reason, but I forget. So you can go ahead and use that at your own risk, but just an interesting fact for you to know. So that is setting that. The other thing I'll show you here, when we manage layouts here, I can also create, again, we've got these templates, and remember these come with those constraints baked in, but you can always change those based on the thresholds you want to set. I'm going to go ahead and create a custom big layout. And what I could do with this big layout right here is I could even make this just for larger screens. So I could set a minimum of, let's say, 1,000, and then use this in any scenario where it is a large screen. Why would you do that? Because you've got that default layout. You probably wouldn't most of the time, but it is an option because remember we saw that how the default layout, it falls back. If no layout matches, it's going to fall back to the default and reflow it. This would allow you to say make either dashboard for ultra wide monitors, or make a dashboard that make that default dashboard much simpler, or use containers more heavily so that it reflows better. So that really, if it's just for these weird scenarios that we haven't accounted for, then it would fall back to a much simpler dashboard. So you have that option available to you. Always keep in mind too that this unused widgets is super useful. So if you're adding things to any of these layouts, then they'll always be accessible to other layouts right there from that menu. So it's super useful to have. So that's about everything you can need to know. If you have any questions about layouts and how they are used, feel free to ping me in the comments.